what an honor. I really appreciate the chance to come up here and be the presenter at this this first workshop of the cohort. And it's great to see such a powerful turnout from everybody. Maya told me there was like 45 people, and I was like, no way. If you get 30, I will give you a golden goose. And I think I'm gonna have to figure out how to get a golden goose. So we do workshops down in Hilo, and they're also available via Zoom. So I find that a lot of people don't. They say they like register and they'll come via Zoom, so they don't come in person. So Maya, I might have to take a little page out of your book and switch the format up a little bit so people come out in person. So again, my name is Anthony, and my program is called Hawai'i Commercial Kitchens. I've worked with, thank you so much, Travis, the Kohala Food Hub, which is part of Ho'ola Farms, and very similar model to what Kohala Food Hub does up here. We have the Hawaii Farm to Car Market, which is the same as the online market here, and then we have the commercial kitchen for rent, and then I spent about 4 years working with Ho'ola on their workshops and courses on different agriculture and business topics. So that's kind of where I got my experience and why I'm here. And today, we're gonna go over, as Maya said, we're gonna do Department of Health permits, we're gonna talk about the homemade food rules, we're gonna talk a little bit about food safety, and then we're gonna talk about business development and taxes. And my goal with this is to kind of cover as much as I possibly can so that if somebody is curious what is the least amount that I need to do in order to start my food business, I want you to have a clear understanding of what that is by the end of this workshop. Sound good? Cool. We did some introductions already, so check that off the list. And we're gonna go right into food establishment permits. Raise your hand if you already have a food establishment permit or have gotten one in the past. Bingo, gotten one in the past. Got it. So on the table there, if you didn't see them, there's a number of different papers, and these are the 2 food establishment permits. There's only 2. So if you're gonna get one, you're gonna be filling out one of these 2 forms. There are the special event food establishment permit, and this is specifically for events like farmers markets, if you're setting up, you know, a booth on the side of the road or at a, maybe there's like a special public, you know, park thing, you get a special event permit. These don't require inspections from the Department of Health, but they are specifically tied to the location where you're serving food. So if you wanna serve food at the Waimea Farmers Market, you need a special event permit just for that market. And you put all of the dates that you're gonna be serving there on the permit. If you also want to serve at the Hilo Farmers Market, then you need another special event permit for that market. So these are tied to the locations. I'm gonna run through the permits and then I'll open for questions, okay? We got the first question back here, microphone.
Yes, I saw, I was ready.
Nice. And then the other permit, the main permit, is the standard food establishment permit. This is how you get the green placard, that green paper that says pass. Anybody that gets one of those green papers has filled out this form, the food establishment permit. Now, if you flip it over, this lists all the different types of food establishment permits, but it's the same permit for all of these, whether you're a small-time producer of, you know, maybe you make muffins, or it's the same permit if you are running a restaurant in a resort. Same permit. But the muffin maker would be a food manufacturer small, and the other one would be restaurant large. Nice catch. Thank you. And that is the same for the food truck. If you want to open a food truck, you need a food establishment permit. If you just want to set up and make food like, on propane grills under a pop-up like this, you can just use special event permits, but you need one for every location where you're selling. So we'll go into a little bit more detail. A lot of people often start with a special event permit. It's much easier to get. So the requirements, you don't need a commercial kitchen necessarily. But if you are serving food, it's very likely that you will need a kitchen. So on the actual permit, you have all these spaces here for the dates that you're going to be at the specific location. So you'll have the location up here. You'll have whoever's in charge, probably the farmer's market manager. You have to put their information up here so the DOH can contact them if necessary. All of the dates. And then for your support kitchen, the information goes right in here. And it has to be signed by the manager of the support kitchen. So Travis, for example, would be signing your special event permit if you are using the Kohala Food Hub kitchen. And then you're going to list what you're actually serving here. And then here's the fun part. There's a couple easy questions on the back. Overhead coverage. Do you have a pop-up tent? Are you inside a building? Protection from public. Do you have sneeze guards? Or are you only doing prepackaged food? Or are you only handling your food at least 5 feet away? Or are you using equipment coverage? You got to have something. You got to check one of those boxes. What type of hand washing sink do you have set up? That's one of the tricky parts of the special event permit. If you're serving food, you have to have a hand washing setup in your booth. Usually it can be as simple as like a 5-gallon bucket with water. And then equipment used for food handling at the food booth. What equipment are you using? Those just have to be checked. And then temperature control as well. Are you using a cooler? Do you have a little refrigerator? Are you using hot plates, sterno? And then the part that I found a lot of people really uncomfortable with, but it's super simple and basic. You have to draw an outline of your booth setup. So usually people have like a 10 by 10 pop-up. So you start with the box, and then you have 2 tables. So you draw your tables. If you have a grill, put your little grill. If you have your hand washing sink, you just have a little circle for the bucket, hand washing sink. And it doesn't have to be much more complicated than that. DOH doesn't, they don't care if you're an artist or not. Once you have your booth diagram set up and you know what your setup looks like, and if you're going to be applying for more special event permits, you can have it like a copy of it so you don't have to draw it every time, right? Simple things like that. And that is the special event permit. So the requirements are the actual permit application, and it's going to come with a fee. There are instructions. Did those come out? They might be up there. They might be up there. Okay. So this document also has an instructions page to give you exactly how to fill it out and how much it costs. If you are doing a special event and it's a one-day event and you only need to do this for one day, I believe this form costs $75. If you do 5 days, let's say you go to you want to do the farmer's market and you're going to go every week for 5 weeks, it costs the same amount. So you just divide that 75 by 5. Now you're only paying less. If you fill it all the way up, it comes to $5 a day. So you can list up to 20 days on here, and it costs $100. You can list more days, and you can even attach an extra sheet with more days, and they charge you $5 a day on top of that 100. So if you know what the plan is, you can project it out and fill out one application if you're going to be working at one farmer's market, and it only is going to cost you $5 a day for the permit. The other requirements that Department of Health will ask for when you turn this in is a copy of your food handler's certification. Who has their food handler's certification? Yeah, look at that. It's also a requirement for homemade food producers. Very simple to get. You can take an online class, costs like $8, $9, takes like 30, 45 minutes. And that is pretty much it in terms of requirements for the special event permit. You turn it in, they ask for 10 days at least before the event, so they have time to process it, and then they'll approve it, and you're good to go. No inspection required. Yeah, so we'll pause for questions now. Let's start in the back here.
I just also want to shout out that there is a free food handler certificate option as well, offered by the state online. So they do tend to fill up, but you can do it for free.
It's not online. You have to do it in-person classes, right?
They have some online ones.
Oh, it's online.
Yeah, they have online ones. Yeah.
Got it.
So
Right.
save yourself the $8, but you do have to plan a little bit in advance because they do tend to fill up, several weeks prior.
It takes longer.
Hi. So thank you. I didn't know that I could attach a sheet when I do, because I do the farmer's market.
Yeah.
So I didn't realize that I could attach a sheet and then maybe save me some money.
Yeah, well, even if you just fill out every single date on here, there's 31 lines. So that would be 31 dates. That's going to be $155. But you can, attach extra dates, and it's just $5 a day for anything 20 and up, 20 dates and up.
And I guess my question, I'm not really clear, but so when I'm seeing a lot of people kind of doing pop-ups just in our town square, and I was kind of asking them, it seems like you can ask permission from the people who might own the strips of land that they're doing it on, but if you do that, you're saying you need to fill out one of these forms, and you kind of have to do it for every day that you plan to be there.
If you are serving food to the public, and I'll read from the Department of Health exactly.
And even for consumer CPG kind of things, packaged goods.
So if you're selling homemade food products that are already packaged and you're not handling any food, then you may not need a special event food establishment permit. But it's very likely that you will. So the rule is a special event is a planned activity where food is distributed to the public with or without charge at a public or a privately owned property. This may include a sporting event, carnival, farmers market, religious organization, function, fairs, other similar gatherings. I'm not gonna lie, a lot of people that are set up on the side of the road selling food probably didn't get a permit. So is there a lot of that? Yes. If you are planning on starting your business, I encourage people to work with the Department of Health to ask questions, do your research, and do it the right way from the beginning so that all your bases are covered. Any other questions about special event? Oh, Sandra.
I was just going to mention,
Oh, can you grab the mic there? Yeah.
when we looked into doing some of our canned goods at one of the events. They told us we needed a HACCP.
A HACCP plan. Yeah, we will get into HACCP plans. If, basically a HACCP plan is a requirement determined by the Department of Health if you are making a high-risk food product. So if you need a HACCP plan, you're not going to be able to use a special event permit. You need a full food establishment permit. So we'll get more into the HACCP plans. So, oh yeah. We got one over here,
So correct me if I'm wrong. So I've been working with the Small Business Development Center, and I've already got the temporary permits. If you're under cottage bakery or cottage food, you don't have to pay the fees, and you just go ahead. And I went to the DOH down in Kealakekua, and they just inspect it and go, yep, everything looks good, and they sign off on it. So you don't have to pay the fees, just get the form filled out. And they gave it to me, and they said, okay, because mine's prepackaged.
Got it. So great, perfect answer to your question. You're a homemade food producer operating under the homemade food rules, which are exempt from Department of Health food establishment permits. You're making your baked goods at home. They don't need to be refrigerated or frozen. They're just room temperature, and then you package them at home. So when you set up your booth and you're selling to the public, there's no actual handling and serving of food. You're just taking a packaged thing and selling it to the public. So that's like the happy medium from DOH is they're not going to charge you a fee, and they just are glad that you're coming by to make sure everything's on the up and up.
Yeah, because most events will require that regardless of producing on the spot or cottage food. Just get it filled out, and then you don't have to pay the fees, and you're just doing it properly. So,
Nice.
Yeah, okay.
I'm going to come to you, sir, in one moment. I just wanted to quickly just ask if Travis could speak for just one moment on like what the process is if you do need one of these permits, like our general turnaround time, how it works, and are we going to talk about Department of Health later?
Yeah, let's do, how about I cover the regular food establishment permits, and then we'll go to Travis for Kohala Food Hub.
Thank you. Hi, I have for the job work that I do, a professional quality control individual designation recognized by the FDA to write food safety plans. Will that suffice in terms of certification for food safety with the Department of Health? Or
So the question is, if you have a special
PCQI.
certification,
The PCQI professional?
PCQI.
Yeah.
you're asking, can I use my PCQI certification instead of a food handler certification? I'm not sure, but the DOH would be able to tell you.
Okay. All right.
Yeah,
thank
they
you.
may also require you to get a food handler cert, but I wouldn't be surprised if they accept the PCQI.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Good? Okay. So, you realize a special event permit isn't going to be enough because you want to make your products and you want to sell your products at Kohala Food Hub, in the grocery stores. You want to ship them to the mainland. You're making a high-risk, value-added product. Maybe your water bath canning, maybe your high-pressure canning, and you need a food establishment permit. Maybe you're opening a restaurant. What does it take? So this one's a little bit more in-depth. So you have the permit application. And this just asks, what's the name? What's your location? Phone number, mailing address. And then you sign it. Very basic information. There's almost no information about your product here. Because what else you need kind of depends on what you're doing. So you're going to be needing to use a commercial kitchen. If you don't have one yourself at your location, then you need a support kitchen, like the Kohala Food Hub or the Hilo Food Hub. So on the special event permit, remember, the support kitchen just gets signed right here. But for the food establishment permit, there's a whole another separate form, the support kitchen use agreement. So this you fill out, it has a little bit more information about what you're going to be doing and specifically what you're going to be doing at the support kitchen. And this has to be signed by Travis or by the Kohala Food Hub manager, whichever kitchen you're using. And then the fee for your permit depends on your risk level. It's 100, 200, or 300, basically. If the DOH determines that what you're doing is a little bit riskier, like if it involves meat, high pressure canning, or a non-continuous cook-chill process, or if it's a higher risk, they're going to charge you $300, and that's an annual fee. The lowest risk is $100. But once you get that green placard, then you're good. You can sell your product basically anywhere. Sorry? How long? 1 year. It's an annual. It's an annual permit with an annual inspection. So you have your permit. You have your support kitchen use agreement. You also need what's called a letter of intent and process flow. Did those ones get printed?
Yes, those are all examples. Those are all on the table at the front.
So this is the one that I think people struggle with the most because there isn't a simple form. There is a template that the DOH has. It's not on their website. So there are hard copies of it up there. If you are thinking about getting a permit, I would take one of those. The letter of intent and process flow is basically just, hey, this is what I am intending on doing. This is the product I'm intending on making. These are the ingredients. This is the recipe. This is my production process. And that's it. This is what I'm doing. If you are doing what the DOH determines is a high-risk product, then you also need a HACCP plan, which stands for Hazard Analysis and Critical Control Point. So all that means is it's basically a letter of intent and process flow that's written by a scientist. Now, you don't have to hire a scientist to write your HACCP plan. You can actually write one yourself. In this modern world, we can, hey Google, I need a HACCP plan for my, I'm just kidding. You can start there, like you can utilize AI, ChatGPT. You don't need to hire somebody to write a HACCP plan. The DOH is ultimately the ones that are going to accept or reject your HACCP plan. As part of the Hawaii Commercial Kitchens program, if you have been in business since March of 2020, we can actually pay for your HACCP plan. We work with John Nakashima, Food Safety Services Hawaii, and he can write you a simple HACCP plan for probably $500. But again, if you are a Hawaii Commercial Kitchens member, we cover that cost. Now, you got your permit. You got your support kitchen use agreement. You have your letter of intent and process flow. You also need to include a copy of your labels. Oh, well, I don't know what my labels are going to look like yet. I don't even have a logo, right? Okay, well, then take a step back. You shouldn't be renting your kitchen and applying for your permit yet. Come up with the basic logo, come up with the basic label. If that's something you need assistance with, there are assistance service providers available. You got Go Farm, you got Kohala, you got Kohala Food Hub. And then you also need your food handler certification. Let's say you're not making a high-risk product, so you don't need a HACCP. You turn in all of these things to DOH, and then it takes, depending on who you know or which office you're applying to, it'll take anywhere from 3 to 6 weeks or more for DOH to get back to you and schedule your inspection. And this happens at your commercial kitchen. So if you're using Kohala Food Hub, you're going to coordinate, right? The inspections are really simple. At Kohala Food Hub, I don't think we've ever had anyone fail their inspection from Department of Health. You do not have to do your full production process. All you need to do is like have your ingredients out, have your pots and pans, whatever you're using, but you don't actually have to make your product in front of the inspector. You just say, hey, this is what I do, this is what I make, this is how I do it, and then the inspector will probably ask you about the sinks, the wash, rinse, sanitize 3-compartment sink. How do you wash the dishes? That's part of your food handler certification. And it's a relatively simple inspection process. And then once you pass, right there on the spot, they'll give you your permit. And then that permit is displayed at your kitchen. If you have a food truck, then you also get a placard that's displayed on your food truck. If you have a restaurant, then your placard's displayed at your restaurant. And that is the basics of food establishment permits. If you want to do a food truck, there's a couple other things you have to do. Everything that we already talked about, but you're also going to need, as part of your letter of intent and process flow really, is your menu. You got to know what you're serving. You're going to have to know what your ingredients are before you apply for your permit. Oh, what if I want to have a different food every day? That's fine, but you have to have a list of what that food is. Oh, what if I want to add a new dish? Yeah, of course, that's fine. Figure out what you're doing, apply for your permit, get your permit, and you can modify your menu and recipe. The DOH just asks that you let them know. If you update your menu, then just update your letter of intent, send it to your inspector, and they'll be your best friend. I would not recommend getting a really simple food establishment permit. Let's say, oh, I'm just going to make blueberry muffins. Okay, great, simple, here's your permit. And then you're like, actually, I'm also going to make sauerkraut, kimchi, I'm going to make beef congee, ready-to-eat sandwiches. You can't do that. Then your DOH inspector is not going to be your friend. So I've also worked with a lot of people that come in and they're like, hey, I want to, we're starting a farm and we have these products and we have these products and we have this produce. So I want to make these products and I want to make these other products. And then we have this special line that we want to market, maybe to Japan or something. And they haven't done anything yet, right? This is just a dream. So I always tell people, well, slow down, pick one thing. Start with one thing. Get your permit, get your production process going, make sure you know what you're doing, make sure you're making some money, and then you can add, you modify, revise. If you want to do a food truck, in addition to the menu, there's also a second inspection. You have to get inspected at the kitchen, your support kitchen, and you have to get inspected at the location where you're going to be vending. You also need drawings of your food truck layout. And you need to fill out the Mobile Unit Operating Procedures form, which is on the table. I think it's 6 pages. That's something I would start with because it actually helps you get all the information. It asks you all the information that you're basically also going to include in your letter of intent and process flow. That is food establishment permits. Crystal clear, right? Not confusing at all. Question?
So the HACCP.
HACCP. HACCP, Hazard Analysis and Critical Control Points.
Okay, so generally speaking, what kind of thing, like meat and cheese and would like honey be considered something like that?
Honey is not high risk.
Okay, so what are other high-risk things that we could be concerned about? Because that seems like that's a whole nother caveat. Like,
Definitely.
A whole nother hurdle.
Yeah, give me a few of the things you want to make.
We're thinking about doing mamaki.
Mamaki tea?
Easy, right? Just dried.
Dried mamaki, not a problem. If you want to make mamaki tea and then bottle it and sell it chilled, ready to drink bottles, That's going to require a HACCP plan.
All right, and then the other one that we were thinking about doing, because I have a bazillion goats now, is goat cheese and goat milk, but that seems like that's going to be a little,
You're going to need a HACCP plan.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, pennies here, anyway. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions about food establishment permits?
Yeah, you mentioned earlier grease vaporization, sorry.
It's okay.
Can you clarify what's in, what's out on grease vaporization?
Yeah,
This
so
is a
that
cold
depends
kitchen.
on what your kitchen is equipped with. So the Kohala Food Hub, the Hila Food Hub, these are both cold kitchens, meaning there's no hood vent. And if there's no hood vent, you can still do hot things in that kitchen. For example, we have at Hilo Food Hub convection ovens. You can use those. We actually have induction cooktops, burners. So you can cook on that induction cooktop burner, but you can't vaporize any grease on it. So you can't saute vegetables. You can't even saute vegetables in oil.
Can you melt butter for candy?
That would probably be up to your DOH inspector. If the DOH inspector is your friend and you've developed a positive relationship with them, they'll probably say, yeah, that's fine. If you're a pain in the butt, they'll probably be like, no.
Does Travis get a say?
On if you're a pain in the butt or not?
It is ultimately up to the health inspector, but there are workarounds. As Anthony mentioned, we have enclosed convection ovens. You can use crock pots. You can use a microwave to melt your butter. There are workarounds to using an open cooktop surface.
No vaporized grease and no open flames is the other one. And then Travis, if you want to hop over here real quick, I'm going to basically, so let's say you want to use the Kohala Food Hub. What's the process? Now keep in mind there's the Department of Health process, what they need, and then there's what Kohala Food Hub needs, which is going to be a couple additional things. So we already went through the DOH requirements. I believe everything for Kohala Food Hub is you also need your GET license, you need to have general liability insurance, and you need a security deposit.
Yep, refundable security deposit, $200.
Anything else?
Those are basically our requirements. General liability insurance, general excise tax. You're going to have a refundable deposit of $200, and then just clearing your processes and what you're hoping to do in our kitchen with myself as the manager. Kind of go through your process, see what you're hoping to do, storage, and any other concerns like that. Is that a question back there, buddy? Yes.
I'm actually curious if we want to do something that's long-term, like say a 10-day ferment in, say, the kitchen here. How does that work in terms of renting time? Because it's not like a 10-hour thing.
I can speak to that real quick because I've got the microphone. So we generally, and this is true for any of our equipment that requires long uses. So we have a freeze dryer in the kitchen. We have a dehydrator in the kitchen. Those are long processes. So what we do is we charge you for the time to prep and load and the time to unload. And then we charge for the when you're using an equipment piece that uses a fair amount of utilities, because we all know utilities are high cost here in Hawaii. We just pass on the kilowatt per hour rate to you as a surcharge. If you were doing a ferment, that wouldn't be necessary. So we try to make it kind of as fair as possible, and have you pay for as little time as possible to use those things. And real quick on the general liability insurance, because I know that can sound like, oh God, another cost. We have an insurance company that Anthony actually referred us to called Flip. We carry our insurance policy there. It's very low cost. It's maybe $250 a year. $289. And we have a discount code referral that gives you like $10 off or something. So,
That's from the $299.
Okay, so $299, so $289. So that's not that bad for a whole year, for an insurance policy. But it just speaks to why you would want to do your business plan ahead of time, get clear on what you're doing ahead of time so that you outlay that cost and actually see a good reward afterward.
Yeah, the general liability insurance does not need to be a big obstacle. Is it a monetary obstacle? Yeah, you don't want to shell out $300 when you're trying to start your business. You can just pay month to month for the insurance. It's like slightly more, but it'll be like $32 a month essentially. Or you can pay for the whole year and get a slightly discounted rate.
One more question over here.
Yeah.
What liability limit are we talking about here?
I want to say you get $1 million for 289. I think that's the min plan. And that's all that Kohala Food Hub requires. Same with Hila Food Hub. So don't quote me on the $1 million, but the entry level plan is 289. Now, they're going to try to sell you more insurance. You can count on that. So if you check additional boxes like, oh, I want this extra coverage, it's going to cost more. But $289 a year is the lowest general liability insurance rate that I've seen in the 5 years that I've been doing this. So that's why we refer people to FLIP. FLIP stands for Food Liability Insurance Program. So they specifically are designed to insure small food businesses. Any questions about what it takes to get your food business off the ground, at least in terms of Department of Health and commercial kitchens? Okay, we'll go into the homemade food rules. And I'm realizing we got an hour left. Yeah, this will be perfect, actually. So who feels confident in their understanding of what the new homemade food rules are? So there was a recent update to the Hawai'i revised code, specifically Chapter 50, Title 50. I don't know what it's called. They updated the definition of homemade food rules, of what homemade food is. This was passed last year. It was supposed to be in effect starting on the 1st of the year, and it didn't get enacted until this last month, essentially. But it finally happened, and essentially they've relaxed the rules. They've lowered the regulation so that you can do more just working at home, not in a commercial kitchen. So not necessarily great for us in the commercial kitchen business, but it's great for you, the homemade food producer. So I'll go through the rules and I'll go through the updates. If you are using your home kitchen to make products to sell to consumers, then you are exempt from the Department of Health food establishment permit. So if you're doing homemade food, then you're operating under an exemption from the food establishment rules. That's important to understand. You are still required to have a food handler certification, but you don't have to turn it into anyone because you're not applying for a permit. But if somebody complains and then DOH comes and says, hey, are you guys operating under the homemade food rules? And you say yes, and they say, do you have your food handler cert? If you don't, you could get a fine. One of the requirements of making food at home, especially if you're making packaged products, is they have to include the statement made in a home kitchen not inspected by the Department of Health. It has to say that on your products. You also have to follow these other label requirements. It's got to have a common name of the product or descriptive name, right? You can't just have if you're making blueberry muffins and you call them Spaceballs, that's not helpful. For the consumer has to know that, oh, this is a muffin, right? You could call it Spaceball Blueberry Muffin, but if you're selling a muffin, you got to call it a muffin. And then you have the ingredients. As long as there's 2 or more ingredients in your product, you have to list them both. And you list them in order of whatever's the most, the highest by weight in your recipe. That's the first thing you list, and then all the way down to the pinch of salt. And then you need to have a name and contact info of the homemade food product operator. The consumer has to have a way to contact you. Now, the old rules, which are here, this lists the types of food that you're able to make at home. Some of the types of food. It's not all inclusive here. And then it also lists those label requirements. And then on the second page, that's stapled, this is the updated food rules. So basically, under the old rules, if you were making homemade food, you can only sell it direct to consumer. You could only sell it at like the farmer's market, right? At your farm stand, hustling on Facebook Marketplace, meeting people in the Walmart parking lot, right? That's all you could do. You couldn't sell your product wholesale on the Kohala Food Hub market or the Hawai'i Farm to Car market or to grocery stores. But now you can. The new definition says, I'll read it exactly. Homemade food producers are allowed to sell their non-temperature controlled for safety products to third parties, online, and wholesale. What does that mean? What's a non-temperature controlled for safety product? Shelf stable? Yeah, it can't be temperature controlled for safety. It can't be refrigerated, it can't be frozen, it can't be like kept hot. It's got to be a shelf stable product. So this is a huge one. This means now you can sell your homemade, baked goods to farm to car. You can sell them to KTA. Now, the only limit to this is going to be the retailer themselves. Like, you're not going to go to Safeway or Costco and get your homemade food product in there. Because Costco, for example, they require any product that they're selling, they require them to have a HACCP plan. So their requirements are actually stricter than the Department of Health. And then the second change is they increased the types of foods that you can make at home. So before, you are allowed to produce food items which are considered not potentially hazardous. For example, breads, rolls, cakes, cookies, pastries, candies, confections, jams, jellies, and preserves, cereals, trail mixes, granola, popcorn, right? But if you want cheesecakes, custard pies, cream puffs, things that require refrigeration, can't do that. But what about sauerkraut or kimchi? Something fermented. That's high risk. What if it's an acidified water bath canned product? That's considered high risk. What if it's pickles? That's considered high risk. Until now. So this rule, this is the second rule that changed. Specifically, homemade foods definition changed to include pickled, fermented, or acidified plant food products that must have a pH at or below 4.2 or a water activity level at or below 0.88. So now we have an increase in the types of foods that you can make at home and some specific, what I would call a critical control point. That's where the HACCP term comes from. That 4.2, that pH, that's considered a critical control point. If you need to cook something like to a certain internal temperature for a certain amount of time, those are both critical control points. But anyways, so now you can do pickled, fermented, or acidified plant food products that have a pH at or below 4.2 or a water activity level at or below 0.88. Now, how do you figure out what your pH is? You test it. Yeah. You can test it with pH test strips. You can use a pH meter. You can send it to a lab and pay to have it tested. But just like the food handler certification that's required for a homemade food producer, these test results, you don't have to turn them in to anyone because you're exempt from the Department of Health food establishment permit. So it's a little weird. So you have to test your product, but you don't have to turn in those test results to anyone. If somebody complains about your product or the DOH sees it on the shelf and they're like, that doesn't look quite right, then they can contact you and ask if you have your test results. What happens if you don't? I don't know. It hasn't happened yet. We're pretty fresh. So, yeah, absolutely.
I have a quick question about that. So if, let's say, you're making pickles at home and you're testing with the pH strips, are you supposed to also keep a log of that? Yeah.
Yeah, your test, if the DOH is like, well, did you test your product? And you're like, yeah, I tested it. And they're like, okay, where's the, do you have a record of the test? You can't just be like, yes, I tested it. It's 4.1. Don't worry. DOH is going to say, well, where's your test log?
And one more thing, I failed to say this at the beginning, but part of what we're really excited about this workshop series is the potential of carrying your products on our online market at Kohala Food Hub. So we would love to be your very first market as you're getting your product up and running. It's our whole mission to support our local businesses. So we're really excited about, although of course it will kind of detract from our commercial kitchen rental business, this expansion of the laws, we're actually very excited about this wholesaling law, because now we can sell on our online market products that you're making in your home kitchen that qualify for this exempt status. So we're super excited. So come talk to us if you already have a product that you're ready to sell, or as you're getting started. And we can also say, hey, we have a granola that's really popular, but what if you tried this, or something. So we can also help provide a little bit of guidance there. And then I also had a quick question, because now, and I'm looking at Shelly because I know she's going to be making pickles. So she can make pickles in her home kitchen and sell direct to consumer, but we can't sell her pickles on our online market in a home kitchen, or we can?
According to the new rules, you can.
Okay, I was confused.
Yeah. Now, are they water bath canned pickles, or are they refrigerated?
They're temperature controlled.
They're temperature controlled for safety. You cannot sell them on the market.
You can't sell this as canned either.
You can.
Acid.
When did the DOH tell you this?
We've been researching this, trying to get our stuff out. About a month ago? They told us that.
A month ago. And what was the product?
Well, we have, soups and stews and stuff like
Is there meat?
that.
Yeah.
Okay, different story, right? Because what does the rule say? The new homemade food rules? Pickled, fermented, or acidified plant food products.
Cut tomatoes is not included in there.
Cut tomatoes is not included in there. Nope, this is gonna keep happening. So I encourage people to read the actual thing. They have a couple weird aside points, and like I said, there's still gonna be interpretation, but I wanna make something clear. If you give me a lower risk canned product, you have a jam,
Yeah, well, the jam was approved before.
not for wholesale. So you have, let's say, what kind of jam?
Calamansi marmalade?
Calamansi marmalade. And you water bath can it. And you test the pH, and you're good on pH. That homemade food product, you can now sell wholesale to third parties. You can ship. You don't need a HACCP.
So salsa,
Salsa,
they told me we couldn't can and sell it,
right, because
but it's an acidified plant.
but because of the tomato info might not be in this on this sheet.
So if you puree
The tomato and also I want to say melon, those two plant foods are still going to be a no.
tomato, if you puree it, they'll allow you. But if you don't, if you just cut it, then it's a no. See, that's the problem with the new rules, that they're not even clear themselves.
They are not super clear, and there's going to continue to be questions. So I can give you another example, right? Fermented products are on here. So let's say I make kimchi, right? What's the kimchi? Who makes kimchi? Right? What happens when you have your ready-to-eat kimchi? Where do you? Is it refrigerated? You better put it in the fridge, otherwise you got a ticking time bomb there, right? So if you have refrigerated kimchi, that's temperature controlled for safety. So that's not gonna, even though it says fermented on here, if you have to refrigerate it, that's temperature controlled for safety. So that's another kind of confusing gray area. We got 3 questions over here. Who's got the, yeah.
So what about the fermented honey garlic? Because that's shelf stable.
Fermented garlic in honey. Is it acidified? Do you add any acid to it? But it's fermented garlic. But does it meet the rules of the Department of Health? So this is a really good point. Just because what you're doing might be able to meet the rules, what's more important than the rules is why the rules exist in the first place, right? It's for food safety. So you want to do the best practice for having food safe product, rather than can I get this by the Department of Health, right? So that's something to consider, especially with these confusing new rules. So technically, I imagine that would be okay. But is it the most food safe? I have heard something about garlic and honey. I forget what it is, though. Why?
Oh, there's a whole science behind it.
Mm-hmm.
It's bacteria. There's nothing there that is, preventing bacteria from growing and spores from developing.
What if you water bath canned it?
Well, so with water bath, you need high acidity, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the heat kills the bacteria, and then
But your pH has to be below 4.2.
exactly. So the pH prevents the spore from developing into a bacteria.
Mm-hmm.
So if you don't have the pH level there, then you have to high pressure can.
Right, and high pressure canning, that's not approved
Right.
for homemade food. That's a higher risk product. That's still going to
So
require
when you're
HACCP.
developing food, you need to understand the science behind it and make sure that it's safe. And again, to your point, you want to pass, and get your okay from the Department of Health. But on the other hand, you want to do, practices that is safe for consumption because, you're liable for this. If something happens and people get sick, even if you have a permit,
Yeah.
it's everything that you have, everything that you own is someone else's. So it you know.
Well, that's a good point, and we're going to get into how your business is structured and what your liability is at the end of this workshop. So,
There were a couple other questions.
couple other questions, yep.
Okay, so I just found out I can't sell my refrigerated pickles to Maya.
You cannot sell your, well, you can sell them to her, to Kohala Food Hub. No, you cannot.
But could I to KTA?
No.
You could sell them on direct to consumer on the side on at farmers.
Oh, okay.
But
if I use the Kohala,
you probably can't sell refrigerated pickles on the side of the road because it's refrigerated. So
okay.
yeah, if you have a food establishment permit, if they're made in a commercial kitchen, you can sell refrigerated pickles.
Okay. I need to find a kitchen. Okay.
Well, great news. We have one here.
Okay. Gotcha. Was there one more question? I remember one other.
This is a great opportunity if you're like, wait a minute, I don't quite understand what I need to do now because of all these wacky rules. So just say what your product is and where you want to sell it, and we can talk if I think what the answer is. Yeah.
This woman's got the mic. You go.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
Could you clarify the rule on selling to restaurants, your product?
Yeah, so technically that would be considered wholesale sales. It'd be just like selling to Kohala Food Hub. So you are now allowed to sell to restaurants your homemade food products if they meet this criteria. Do you have a specific product in mind?
No, I just thought I saw in the verbiage, like, not selling to restaurants.
That doesn't ring a bell for me. Yeah. Because restaurants definitely fall into third parties
Third party
and wholesales.
That's why I was like, clarifying.
I'm not sure what verbiage you're talking about.
I just when I first saw the rules, I just like remembered that, but
Okay.
but it says third party.
Yeah, so it says homemade food producers are allowed to sell their non-temperature controlled for safety products to third parties, online, and wholesale. Yeah. There isn't anything about restaurants in the actual verbiage on this sheet. So restaurants falls into third party and wholesale. Yeah.
Would a chili oil be allowed under these new rules?
Ooh, a chili oil. Probably not. I imagine a chili oil is going to require a HACCP plan. But it's possible. What's the pH? What's that?
There's no acidity.
So 0.0. It's got to have a pH.
I don't know what it would be like, whatever the oil would be naturally or whatever.
Yeah. So if it's at or below 4.2, technically under the rules, the answer's maybe.
But there wouldn't be any water necessarily, right?
There wouldn't be any water. But so you're adding dried chili into the oil. What's the water activity of the dried chili? Minimal, yeah. Yeah. So because these things haven't all been sorted out yet, DOH has said that they're going to come out with like a list of foods, but it can't be all inclusive, and who knows how long that's going to take. So the best thing to do is ask. They're going to be getting a lot of these questions, and this is a good way to develop your relationship with the Department of Health. So I always encourage people to try to figure out who their inspector would be. So like at the Kohala Food Hub, the inspector is the same for every single person. here at Kohala Food Hub, the inspector is going to be the same for every single person, almost for sure. So instead of just like, you can call the helpline, the DOH helpline, but if you can talk to the actual inspector, say, oh, I'm going to be making mine at the Kohala Food Hub, then talk to that inspector. If you're going to be making it at home, you can call the helpline. I would always encourage everyone to be emailing things or at least recording things, because it's so easy to misinterpret what they say, or two different people at DOH may interpret something differently and give you two different answers, or just say it two different ways. So I always encourage people to be talking to the same person every time and get it on paper. So again, maybe.
One more question over here.
Yeah.
Couple back there as well.
Okay.
Over here?
So I haven't tested anything yet because I wanted to see first. So not full-on cheesecake, but say a light cheesecake swirl in a brownie, say. That might, because the sugar content to cheese dairy ratio could meet these pH.
Would you store it in the fridge though for safety?
Some of them you don't. I know Texas just removed all their cottage laws, but they were very strict and they had like a recipe book that you could follow. And certain ones, long as it met certain pH guidelines for their state, you could do it. So I'm wondering if it meets these requirements.
So again, that information isn't written anywhere. That determination isn't written anywhere. Based on the interpretation of what's written, I would say probably not.
Okay.
Would be your answer.
Okay.
But-
So if I sent it off to have it tested and it meets the at or below those requirements and it qualifies as shelf stable, then is that okay?
Probably. If you're sending it away and getting it tested and you want like it shelf stable, I think if you're adding that like swirls of cheese, I don't see it getting a thumbs up. Okay. Would be my guess.
Still potentially get it tested, have it evaluated.
You can
by
do all that,
somebody.
or before you do that, you can ask DOH.
Okay. Okay. Real quick, if anybody does testing or wants testing, my aunt actually works for the University of Idaho, and they do these tests for you for $25. So you
Nice.
send in your product, mail it, they test it, and they send the results back to you. So.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
And I'm going to come to those questions in the back. I just was wondering, Travis, if you might speak for just a moment about the Department of Health. I want to kind of demystify that a little bit. Our inspector is Jeff Mackay, and he's lovely and wonderful. And he's helped us get some of our products up and running. So I wonder if you could just speak a little bit to your experience of Jeff and all of that.
Yeah. So I'm originally from Alaska, and I managed restaurants for a while. I bartended, I served, worked in kitchens, and every health inspector I ever came up against there, I felt like I was coming up against them. They were working against us. They were trying to find something wrong with the business or the kitchen. They wanted to ding you. It never felt like a collaboration. And Jeff Mackay and the Department of Health here in Hawaii so far, in my experience on Big Island, has been extremely helpful to every individual. I've connected a lot of people in our community with him. They're short-staffed, so he's kind of been covering way more than he should. They're currently trying to get some people trained, but who knows? I think it's a 1.5-year process before they are released on their own.
To give you some perspective, Jeff is also our inspector in Hilo.
Yeah, and he covers all the dairy on the island. So, supposed to be 4 inspectors on each side of the island, and I think it was 2 and 1 for a while. But the wealth of knowledge that he shared through email and text with people I've connected him with in our community has been so generous. I've been through several inspections with him, and it hasn't been like him pointing out everything wrong. I had some people that were using a freeze dryer and dehydrator, and they forgot to wear their gloves in the inspection. And rather than hitting them right then and there for that, he's like, next time you need to make sure you're wearing your gloves during this preparation. And again, as Anthony was mentioning earlier, you're not going through every step of your process when they're here. You're not processing the food in front of them. You're showing them the equipment and kind of what you're doing. And
you say, and then I put gloves on,
Yeah.
like pretending to put gloves on. Then I wash my hands.
Exactly. So
Or first I wash my hands.
It doesn't need to be intimidating or scary. I've also stood in on all these inspections, and you can always feel the nerves, but they're there to help you. They're there to certify you, hopefully. They want you to have that green pass, and they're trying to work with you, not against you. So I really encourage anyone to reach out to our Department of Health and these inspectors, because they will respond, and they are trying to help our community and help you create a business or a product or whatever you're hoping to do.
Yeah, I echo that. Jeff is so great. The Department of Health is your friend. Please go easy on them if you're calling in to ask about these homemade food rules, because this was not their choice, right? If it was up to DOH, they wouldn't have passed this. So this was the people saying, Department of Health, you need to change the rules. So the Department of Health is changing the rules. And what that means is this document, right, needs to be updated. So keep that in mind. This is an old document, starting a homemade food operation. It doesn't reflect the new rules. That's why we stapled the updated rules to it, okay? If you see this document, this also needs to be updated, but it is still valuable. This was basically like a flow chart for, do I need a commercial kitchen for my product? And the first question isn't, what's your product? The first question is, where do you want to sell your product? If the answer is in stores, then it had to be made in a certified kitchen. This is no longer accurate, right? Because you can now sell your homemade food, not made in a commercial kitchen, to some retail and stores.
One more question over here.
Yes.
I'm curious about the labeling. You mentioned that we have to label a homemade food that's produced in a kitchen not inspected, but do we have to put dates on there, like date of production, date of expiration, things like that?
So from the homemade food operation sheet, you have the statement that reads, made in a home kitchen, not routinely inspected by Department of Health, common name of the product, descriptive names, ingredient list by weight, name and contact information of the homemade food product operator. Now, does this say that you're required to list dates on your product? It doesn't appear to. Do you think it's best practice to list dates on your products? Right? Probably. Yeah. So, does this document say it's required? No. Do you want to date your product? Like produced on this date? I would, yeah. Yes, in the back.
Say we're doing a pop-up for hot chocolate.
Hot chocolate.
But we're not using like traditional dairy like cream or milk or nut milk or anything like that. We're just using butter. So it's shelf stable and cold on ice. Would we have to do the inspection for that sort of thing? We mix it with...
You're doing a food truck or just a pop-up?
Like a pop-up cart. So it can be at special events, maybe farmers markets. But
So it depends on how equipped your cart is. Like you can permit with a green placard, like a hot dog cart, for example. It just has to meet certain requirements. So it's possible that you can get a green placard and a mobile food establishment permit that would require an inspection, and you would have to have a support kitchen. Or you can just get the special event permit without the inspection for each location that you're serving.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah, you got options.
One more question over here.
One more question.
What about untempered chocolate? So I keep it in a fridge, not necessarily like for health, but just so it keeps like a solid form. Can I make that at home, or do I need to make that in a commercial kitchen?
So the product itself is shelf stable? What happens if you leave it out?
It softens. So it's a chocolate like peanut butter cups. So I keep it in a fridge just to hold. But room temperature, I guess it would it would soften. And I would be selling at a third party,
like the Food Hub?
Yeah. If it's a refrigerated product, I would say you might.
Because you're saying you've been saying, refrigerate for safety, and I'm like, I don't know if it's for safety necessary. That's.
Yeah.
Just curious.
Yeah, if it's refrigerated, it's unclear if you're refrigerating it for safety. So chances are, if somebody sees a refrigerated product, if like a DOH inspector is like in a store and checking things and they see a homemade food product that's in a fridge, they might call you. If you have an enemy, they might report you to the Department of Health. From my experience, a lot of the calls that Department of Health gets is not actual food safety concerns, but interpersonal conflict. So like, if you're serving food, don't make enemies. Yeah. So I'm going to run through some food safety pretty quickly, and then we'll take a few questions on that. But I definitely want to cover setting up your business and business structure, and then we'll do the rest of the questions at the end, yeah? So the food handler certification is required. There are free classes through the Department of Health, or you can do, this one's $7.95, and you can do it whenever you want. It covers food safety basics, including proper handling, preparation, cooking, and storage, and the certification is good for 3 years. So for food safety, I'm gonna cover Fat Tom. Who's heard of Fat Tom before? Sandra, no? So these are 6 critical controls for microbial growth that you want to be mindful of when you're making and serving food. So this is a way to remember them, Fat Tom. You think of a nice chubby tomcat. Food, acidity, time, temperature, oxygen, and moisture. So what the food is matters. So bacteria needs nutrients, especially proteins and carbohydrates, to grow. Food like meat, dairy, and cooked grains are high risk. The acidity. Bacteria thrive in neutral to slightly acidic environments, 4.6 to 7.5. Highly acidic foods, like vinegar and citrus, inhibit bacterial growth. Time. If your food is sitting out in the temperature danger zone, 41 to 135 degrees Fahrenheit, then the bacteria that's on there is multiplying. And if that food is in that temperature danger zone for more than 4 hours, it's got to go. You cannot serve it legally. Temperature, again, 41 to 135. Your food has to be kept cold below 41 or hot above 135 to keep it out of that temperature danger zone. Some bacteria require oxygen to grow, aerobic bacteria, while others thrive in oxygen-free environments, such as in vacuum-sealed foods. So when if you're vacuum sealing a product, that may be because you're removing the oxygen. That may be something that the Department of Health says, hey, this actually requires a HACCP plan because you're taking the oxygen out of the packaging. And moisture. Bacteria needs water to grow, so foods with high water activity, like fresh meat and dairy, are more prone to spoilage. And all the methods of food preservation are intended to create food environments void of bacterial reproduction. This is a photo from one of our Master Food Preservers classes at the Kohala Food Hub. It's all the different food we made that day. Kimchi, shelf-stable pickles, marinara sauce, acidified, of course, and blended. Questions about food safety? Yeah?
Maybe a donkey. question, but what is water activity? What's the definition of that?
Ooh. I'm gonna have to edit this one in, Adam.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. I don't want to give you the wrong words, but essentially, right? How much free water is how much water is available in the food still? So the higher the water activity, the more water there is.
What was the temperature range again?
Temperature range, 41 to 135.
This is just a note because I just read this in a Jeff Mackay long email about fish, which has a whole different level of bacteria considerations. But we do sell vacuum sealed fillets of fish that are frozen on our market. And what he was saying is that, and this is just like for your own food safety, I didn't know this until yesterday, you should actually cut it out of the vacuum sealed bag for that same reason before you thaw it, because that vacuum sealed environment can cultivate a certain bacteria.
Anaerobic bacteria.
Right. So, word to the wise, when you're thawing your proteins, cut them out of the vacuum sealed pack first for your own food safety.
So would that apply to tofu?
Would that apply to tofu?
Like water packed tofu that you've frozen and then you're going to thaw?
So the rules for thawing are really, if the food safety recommended way to thaw things is never setting them out at room temperature, right? You always want to be thawing it in running water or letting it thaw in the refrigerator. Yeah, so I don't know about the removing it from its packaging though. I'll take other food safety questions too, but just for time's sake, I want to make sure we cover the business registration stuff, because this can be a whole nother side of things. In fact, it usually is what I find to be new food entrepreneurs' biggest struggle, because why are we making and serving food? Because that's what we like to do. That's what we're good at. That's what we're passionate about, right? Maybe you're not very passionate about what your business structure is and your taxes and your accounting and your spreadsheets and your permits and your compliance, right? Who gets excited about that? Weirdos like me. So you want to have somebody that gets excited about that stuff that you can talk to, and that they can help you with it. Because if you ignore this side of things, you're not going to have a successful food business. Doesn't matter how good your food is if your business is in the gutter, right? So what's the bare minimum in order to start a food business here in Hawaii? You can do the simplest form of business ownership, business structure, and that's being a sole proprietor. Technically, you do not have to register your business with the DCCA if you are a sole proprietor, but you do need a general excise tax license. And one of the easiest ways to get a general excise tax license is to fill out the BB1 form, the basic business application. It costs $20, you register your business, and you get your general excise tax license, all in the same form. And then remember, you also need your food handler cert. And that might be it, right? Depending on what you're making and where you're selling it, maybe you don't need, anything from Department of Health. So, bare minimum, you can register your business, fill out the BB1 form. You can do it in person, or you can do it online. And then you get your general excise tax license. Let's see if there's some brave audience members. Raise your hand if you're not really sure what general excise tax is and what you need to pay for it. Yeah, all right. So this is a little weird. I'm from Ohio originally, and in Ohio we have sales tax, right? A lot of states have sales tax. Hawaii doesn't have sales tax. Hawaii has general excise tax. So if I'm a retailer and I'm selling food, I have to pay 4.5% of all of the money that I make to the state and county. if I'm a contractor and I'm, let's say I'm a mechanic and I fix your truck, I have to pay 4.5% of the money that you pay me for my general excise tax. So 4.5% is the retail amount, and 0.5% is the wholesale amount. So let's say you're selling shelf-stable pickles, and you're selling them at a farmer's market, direct to consumer, and you make $100 that day. You owe $4.50 in general excise tax. If, let's say, you sell $100 of pickles to the Kohala Food Hub, you're selling them wholesale. So now you only have to pay the wholesale GET tax, which is 0.5%, 0.5%. So that's 50 cents. So if you're selling wholesale, it's only 0.5%. If you're selling retail, it's 4.5%. 4.5% on all of your business activity. And you have to report that on your general excise tax. You have to go log in. You have to pay it. The best way to do it is every quarter. That's what I would recommend. Questions on general excise tax?
Just
Yeah.
one comment that you can pass that along to us. If you were selling us $100 worth of pickles, you can charge us that 5% GE tax.
0.5.
0.5, excuse me, 0.5. And that's what most of our vendors do, is they charge us that 0.5%.
Yeah, so
and
it
pass
would be, oh, here's $100 in pickles plus my 0.5% GET, and then, yeah, you charge. And you can pass on the tax to the end customer too, right? So it acts as a sales tax. You could just say, oh, you want my pickles? They're $10 plus 4.5%. And then that way, right, you're passing it on to the consumer. Thanks, Maya. So that's like the bare minimum. If you are a sole proprietor, right, this is the simplest form of business ownership. It requires the least amount of paperwork to set up. And when it's time to pay your federal and state income tax, you do so on your personal tax return. And you do it, if you have a farm, you're going to be using a Schedule F. If you just have a normal value-added products business or a home-based bakery business, you would use a Schedule C. And that lists, on that Schedule F or Schedule C, you list all of your expenses and you list all of your income, and then you got to pay the tax. You got to pay the tax, man.
And I may be wrong on this, Anthony, but I think it's 4.5 to the state, and then there's an additional 0.212 Hawaii County surcharge. So your total GE is 4.712.
Thank you. Yes. Now, what if somebody opens a jar of your pickles, but it's stuck, and they're trying to open the pickle jar, and they can't do it, and they're frustrated, they're hangry, they haven't eaten all day, they really wanted a pickle, they lose their temper, and they smash it on the ground in anger, and they cut their hand open. And they're a litigious person, and they want to sue you for something dumb, right? Frivolous lawsuit, crazy, right? But crazy lawsuits happen in America. So if you have a sole proprietorship and somebody sues you, your assets are not protected. So this is what Sandra was talking about earlier. Somebody can sue you, say they sue you for $1 million, and let's say they sue you for $2 million, and you have $1 million of food liability insurance. Great. Now you only owe $1 million. Your house, your cars, all your personal assets, all of those things would be considered up for grabs if you don't have protection of liability. So the way that you do that in terms of business structure is you have a limited liability company. This separates your business from your personal assets. Remember, corporations are people, right? Remember when we decided that? Think about it like that. Now you have a separate entity. You have your personal assets, your house, your car, your retirement account, the cash under your mattress. And then you have your business, which is separate. Maybe you have a business, maybe you have like a sweet refrigerated van for your business, right? That's part of your business. All the money that your business brings in, all the equipment that's part of your business, those are all assets that belong to your business. Now, if you get sued, only your business assets, if you have an LLC, are liable. They can't come after your house, they can't come after your personal retirement account or the money under your mattress because you are separate from your business if you set it up that way. So what's the easiest way to do that, right? We'll start with like the bare minimum. Same form, basic business application, the BB1 form. So the same as doing a sole proprietorship. The other thing you do is you complete the LLC1 form, articles of organization. And that's an extra $50. Now, this is where it can get a little confusing because a limited liability company is not a federal tax classification. It's like it's a state, it's like a state entity. So for the federal, for the feds, for the IRS, they need to know, is your company, are you a sole proprietor or are you a corporation? With an LLC, you can do either. You can be an LLC taxed as a sole proprietor, or you can be an LLC taxed as a corporation. So that's where if you're not familiar with this stuff, you don't want to set up your business yourself. You want to hire somebody to help you. Can you use LegalZoom and set up your LLC? Yes, you can. I've done that in the past. When I set up my first LLC, I did not do that when I set up my last LLC. You don't actually have to pay LegalZoom to set it up. But if you don't know what you're doing, it's probably a better idea to talk to Hawai'i Small Business Development Center, Go Farm, and get assistance from them as well.
What about the two other caveats, like going in as a religion or as a trust?
I'm not going to speak about starting a religion or a trust in this workshop. I would say that's a little bit more unique. Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
If you you can only have a sole proprietorship company if you're the only owner, or you and your spouse. You can still be considered a sole proprietor and a single member sole proprietor. If you have multiple members, like say there's 3 of you and you each have a third of the company, you can't be taxed as a sole proprietor. So I don't want to get like in the weeds with limited liability company stuff, but maybe I can respond to specific questions. And we have 15 minutes left. So open for questions. Let's start with any questions about business structure and taxes. Great, love it. Food safety. Department of Health. Any questions? Yeah, we got one over here.
Do we have the same question?
Can you
Mine was a
take
food
this?
safety question. Oh, sorry. I guess this would come under food safety. So what if you're making a product that uses a prepared product, like say tofu, like as one of your main ingredients.
Okay.
It sounds like that might complicate things. Or not.
Well, what are you doing?
So say like a vegan egg salad.
A vegan egg salad, and is it going to be, how's it packaged? Or you want to sell it like you're serving it? How are you serving it?
Ready to eat, not canned. What am I pushing here?
You just hold it up, yeah, that's fine. So it's a ready-to-eat product in like a plastic clamshell container.
I don't know what your point was, what you were worried about.
Yeah, no, I got it. So there, a couple things. That's going to be a high-risk product. You're going to need a HACCP plan for something like that. But if the question is, what are the implications of using an ingredient in your product? If it'll be a little bit different for if it's a homemade food versus a food establishment permit. But essentially, if that product has ingredients, right, you have to list all of those ingredients in your ingredients. That's one part of it. But right, another thing that you would have to do is, obviously, you're going to be listing that on your list of ingredients on your letter of intent and process flow. But it's definitely something that is doable. People do it all the time, yeah.
So that wasn't my question.
Okay.
My question was just listening to you talk about the new cottage rules, the making food at home. Is there some sort of explanation as to what is the benefit? Like, what are people actually saving themselves in costs? Because I'm hearing a lot of confusion from people about how and what to do at home and what not to do at home. And as a consumer, I'm getting terrified about what I might be offered to eat because I don't necessarily want to buy food made in people's homes when they're confused about what they're doing. And I feel like if you're using a commercial kitchen and you're using a resource like Kohala Food Hub, you're getting a lot of assistance and sort of, kind of containment and the health inspection. And so is there just sort of a top level, like we've compared and this is how much you save in costs or this is how much you save in permit fees, or like why are we encouraging people to make food at home? What is the benefit to all of us to have more people making food at home?
Yeah, so the purpose of the legislation was that so that it's easier and cheaper for people to manufacture food safely in their home kitchens. That was the intention of the legislation. I wouldn't say that I'm necessarily encouraging people to make their food at home, right? I would actually say the opposite. I would encourage you to make your food in a commercial kitchen and get a green placard from the Department of Health, because what you said is very accurate. It does give you a level of authority and professionalism that you can't get with a homemade food product. And a lot of consumers don't want to eat homemade food products, and that's why they have to be labeled as homemade food products. So it'll be up to the consumer to decide what they want to buy. It'll be up to the grocery stores and retailers on what they want to carry. In terms of cost savings, it depends on how much kitchen time you would use, but I mean, DOH permits aren't expensive, right? It's $100, $200, or $300 for the year. And in terms of kitchen time, that's going to get expensive, right? The minimum plan at Hilo Food Hub is $200 a month. Yeah. But also, I hear a lot of people that come into the Hilo Food Hub that were trying to make or were previously making their stuff at home, and they're like, oh, this is the best. I'm finally separated my business and personal life. Now I like going into my kitchen, whereas before then I dreaded it, but now I like coming in here and making my food product, and everything's clean and it's separate. There's no cat hair in there. Yeah. Right here?
And this may be the last question, so we can wrap it up in a timely fashion and do a quick tour of the kitchen for anybody who wants.
No pressure on this question. I'm wondering, of the things you discussed about so for those of us who naturally would cast a wider net with the things that we want to offer. And you're saying kind of start simple, start with maybe one winner, go from there. Of the forms that you talked about, what's the umbrella form versus what has to be done again and again with each new variation of product? Do you know what I mean? Like, so.
Yeah. So give me 3 examples of products you want to make.
So we make preserves, we make pickles, we make some of our own crackers, we make.
Okay, perfect. Pickles, preserves, and crackers. So what's the simplest one of those? Crackers, probably.
Sure.
Pickles, preserves, or crackers. So do you want to be a commercial kitchen, or do you want to be homemade food?
After today, probably commercial kitchen.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if you want to do commercial kitchen, then you're going to want to get the food establishment permit, right? So this permit application is one time, and you get your permit's good for a whole year after the inspection, and then you're required to get an annual inspection, but it's usually the DOH is like at least 6 months behind. So it's more like every year and a half you get an inspection. Then you have your letter of intent and process flow, right? Which I would, again, just have the crackers on there, right? You're getting your...
That's one kind of cracker, right? So like.
No. So say you have 6 different types of crackers. You can put, we're making crackers. This is the basic cracker. These are our 6 varieties. This is the differences with each one, the different ingredients with each one. And then you have your labels, right? You get your food handler's cert. You're not going to need a HACCP plan for crackers. And then you have your permit. You're good to go. Now you decide you want to start doing preserves. You are not going, it's unlikely that you will need another food establishment permit. All you would do is edit your letter of intent and process flow, add the additional product, add the additional labels, and then notify the Department of Health. If it's different enough that it warrants a new inspection, they'll schedule a new inspection. But likely, they'll say, okay, we've updated your file. So it's a lot easier to, it is easy to add things on to your permit.
That would be a no charge?
It's up to them. It doesn't, if there's no change in risk level, then there'd be no additional charge. If your risk level increases, then they'll say, okay, your old permit was 100 a year, now you're 200 a year. Kind of depends.
And we've done that with various like beverage mixes that we make and dehydrated and freeze-dried fruit. Like once we get the process flow approved for the one, we just notify the Department of Health and we don't need a whole new inspection or anything like that. So it's not quite as arduous as it might sound.